And we're live. Woo-hoo.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, Shelley. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
So I've invited Shelley on to talk about brand strategy for micro businesses, amongst a few other things, if we get onto them. So we've got two possible questions I can ask you. You can either go straight into brand stuff, or can ask the more boring, like, who is Shelley Röstlund? So I'm going to ask the boring question. So who is Shelley Röstlund?
Tim, I feel
How
like
did you end up as a brand strategist?
I know. I think, Tim, we talk too much about marketing stuff, don't we? We get a little bit like... so Shelley Röstlund. So I'm South African. I live in the middle of landlocked England, nowhere near the ocean, unfortunately. Married to a Swede that I met in an Aussie bar in Vienna in 2006. I have a 13-year-old daughter. How I got to do what I do today, it's been a bit of a... I heard someone yesterday call it a squiggly career. I like that. I think I've had a squiggly career. So while I did an economics degree in South Africa, I did 4 years. So in South Africa, that means you did an honours year, which specialised specifically in macroeconomics. And then decided I didn't want to be a trader. That's because I was like, this is not for me. And then I just kind of had a squiggly career through accounting roles and eventually managed to work within a franchisor where I got to play a bit in marketing as well. And so I have a bit of consulting background before I kind of fell into the whole social media. And then I've kind of specialized into a brand strategy by now. It's about 15 years down the line. Is that a long enough story?
No, I want to hear more. And I see a little Yoda behind you. There's so much I want to ask, but let's start with the micro business part, because what exactly is a micro business compared to a small business, and how does brand strategy differ when you start going micro?
Okay, so I kind of niched down to micro because I did find that there's definitely a difference in your aches and your pains at a certain point in terms of the number of people that are in your business, if that makes sense. So there's a huge proportion. I think the US might be similar. I haven't looked at your statistics, but in the UK, definitely, 80 to 95% of businesses are small businesses, and a huge majority of that are actually solos and micros. So micro in the UK is anything from 0 to 10 employees. And I would kind of define that a little bit because there's quite a few consultants or small boutique agencies in that which fall within that category, but they might not be employees. So I kind of just call them team members, right? So you might be a solo that might have a couple of creatives working with you, freelancers, or you might be a small agency with a couple of freelancers. So that's kind of micro. And then I don't know if you follow Daniel Priestley at all. And I know, Timmy, you're coming to Atomicon. Are you coming to Atomicon?
No,
is he?
Not.
No, are you? So Dan Priestley's coming to Atomicon, right? So I don't know if you've listened to any of Dan's stuff, but he's got quite good tipping points he talks about in his work. And one of them is kind of getting to that, that 12th employee almost. So I would say for micros 10. But as soon as you start having too many people, you start having layers, don't you, Christelle?
Yeah.
And then you've got all sorts of other different challenges and things in terms of management. And, so small businesses in the UK, I would say is, they would, from the FSB or the Federation of Small Businesses, would qualify that to be probably up to 50 or 100 employees. But then micros, I think, are a little bit before that.
Okay. So how does brand strategy differ then? What makes it unique?
For micros versus...
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So I think it's not so much that it's completely different. It's more the application, if you like. So there's a lot of jargon and there's a lot of words that come with, brand and vision and mission and all of these things, right? So I think what I like to do is kind of take those terms but convert them into more simplified fundamentals where those things are important for you, but actually they look like this and they sound like this. And I think for micros, it's literally down to, why the heck am I doing the work that I'm doing? What kind of working lifestyle do I actually want? Do I want to scale, that whole dirty word, or do I actually just want a good business that actually, feeds my kids, allows me some holidays? I've got a couple of great people to work with, so branding, the strategies and the principles are still the same, but the application is probably simpler for smaller businesses, but just as important.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you I don't know how do I describe this question, but a very simple question, as in let's say Christelle's running a llama farm. This is a joke.
A llama farm, grand.
Long-running joke on the show, but she says, well, I've got other things to worry about opposed to branding. Why is branding important to a micro business? I mean, why should they care about branding when they've got all these other things to worry about?
Yeah, because I think the challenge, and this is why I'm trying to do a lot of educating in my podcast as well as I've got a group program as well, is that people have muddied the water a little bit around what brand strategy is and what marketing is, right? Yeah. And the thing about brand strategy is it's the stuff you do and decide before you even go into what your marketing plan is going to be. So they're not one and the same, and they are symbiotic. Yeah. But the brand strategy are the businessy parts. It's the business-led bits that you have to make decisions about. Exactly, like, who the heck am I? How do I want to be perceived? What kind of experience do I actually want to give my customers? And your value proposition work, that all comes in brand strategy. So when you're starting your llama farm, you gotta, right, so what is it that I do? What are my services? What else am I going to do with the llamas? How am I different to my competitors? Those are actually quite big decisions to make before you then decide how you're going to go to market, which is your marketing plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question for you about branding. Once upon a time, it was said that once you're online, you are a brand. And I would always think, but I'm a person. Can you talk on this a little more? I mean, can we get rid of we're all a brand when we go online? Can we be people?
I think you could just be who you are, right? I think there's a challenge where I think where the aggravation comes a little bit for people is when they are online, but they're also trying to be a professional, either employed in a business or they're running their own business, right? There's no defining line where you get to say, oh, well, I get to be this person over here and I get to be this person over here for two different things, right? And we know this, Tim, Christelle, I don't know how long you've been on Facebook and whatnot, but Tim, I reckon you're probably the same as me, probably going on 15, 16 years, right? Back in the day, do you remember how, and I suppose there are some people still doing it, they're trying to create separate profiles in order to do that. What I would say is, and I know there's too much of this term of personal brand being thrown out there amongst other labels, right? But actually, if you think about the work that goes into a personal brand, and I was actually talking to someone about that this morning, because he was trying to say to me, well, Shelley, but how do I, once I've realized what my marketable value is, so what my proficiency is, this is a bit I try and get people to focus on. It's not about your technical skill that you're selling. It's actually all your years of experience and your proficiency at doing it that actually you need to look at when you're trying to value yourself. And even if you're an employee, this is true for you, because you're trying to work out what your transferable skills are when you want to move jobs, right? Those are your marketable value. And ultimately, when you actually do the work with personal branding, actually what you become, Christelle, is a lot more comfortable in just being you, because you're making it okay going, actually, I am funny, but I'm quite professional and I'm quite quirky. This is who I am. That's why I love the brand archetype work just for personal branding, because you go, oh, it's all right to be me. It's okay. And then people don't have to keep, but you need to be this. I'm like, no, I don't, because I've done the work. I've realized that I'm okay to be me. I happen to do this work. I happen to do that work, but I'm me. Does that help you?
It does. And I like when brands are quite personal. I mean, you're going to AtomicCon next week. Is it next week or pretty soon?
It's next week. Yeah.
And that's a good example of a brand who still seems to be quite themselves. and hilarious and
Andrew, because it's Andrew and Pete, right? So they've baked in, they worked a lot on their personal brand, and not only that, and I know there's obviously the 2 email marketing guys, so I said Rob and Kennedy, but there's very few people that can pull that off to be 2 personal brands in one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's bloody hard, isn't it?
That's a whole other thing. Absolutely.
But they've thought about their character, and then they've brought it in because they are quite similar personalities, slightly different, but similar in terms of personality style. And they've baked it into, their product brands, and their product brands are the conference, the membership,
Yeah. So it sounds from what you were saying that you're really, when you were saying you're a brand strategist, most of it's in the strategy side rather than like popularly. You're not like you should use font.
No,
size.
It's not design. No, it's not design. No. Because I've come to brand strategy from business consulting background, right? So when I first went self-employed, because I'd spent a huge chunk of my working life within a franchise, my business consultancy was heavily skewed towards structured business formatting.
Yeah.
So I had to learn about intellectual property. I had to learn about, what is your value proposition? What's your financial model? What's your business model? And I still love doing, and I've always done that anyway. When I was doing digital marketing stuff with clients, I was asking questions, and that's how I realized, actually, that's not digital marketing, Shelley. You need to say something different and package it differently. And that's why in the last couple of years, I've kind of made that clarity of the 2 different things.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question because you mentioned this. People get confused between marketing and branding. Why is branding so important? And does it go down to even, this is the color scheme I'm going to use all the time? Tell us about that.
All right. So, so the way I try and explain it, because I had to think about this a lot when I put my program together, because I had to educate and explain it as I was going along, right? And the brand strategy bit is the bit that saves you all of those hours of feeling like you have to start from scratch every time you do anything, like a marketing campaign or anything like that. And I kind of invented what I call a brand compass document. So we know brand guidelines, right? So brand guidelines are, here's your logo, use it in these different ways, don't use it in these ways, here's your fonts, right? So that's brand guidelines. However, what you need sometimes more as a micro business, and the person who's at the center of the micro business, is sometimes you have to work with all of those creatives, right? And then they will ask you questions every time you go to them. I want a website, to start asking you a bunch of questions. If you actually sorted out your brand strategy and had that documented in some way, you could actually share that with your creatives when you actually instruct them, so that actually they go, oh, right, most of my questions are answered now. All I'm going to ask you is a little bit of detail of what I need for the job that I'm going to do for you. Now, the reason I say that's important is because you keep saying things in a completely different way. You get really inconsistent when someone's asking you a question, and you haven't actually taken the considered time to work out, who am I? How do I want to come across? What is it that I'm actually doing here? What's my USP? What's my genius? What am I, how do I say things? If you haven't thought about those things, you've got to keep thinking about them every time you decide to do something, or go to networking, or hold an event, or put a leaflet together, or do a campaign. So your brand strategy, and a brand compass, as I call it, is more than that. So it's making those decisions about your value proposition. Yes. Who are you? And a couple of key messages around how you state that. What is your product mix? Explain that very, very clearly. So in your brain, you kind of know these are the different things I've got in my ecosystem that I'm trying to sell. You've been very clear about who your audience is, not down to a customer avatar exercise, because you would do that in digital marketing to go and work out your content. But also you would have visual styling guides, and you'd have editorial guidelines as well, which all help when you want to go work with a graphic designer and a copywriter, anybody who's going to try and help you in your business. So it directs everything else that you're going to do. It's almost like, I call it an 8-page illustrated guide to you. Yeah. And then it's consistent. So you don't have to keep regurgitating or keep picking your brain. You actually So the
importance of having consistency is even though we know what we're talking about, other people might get confused if we keep changing what we're doing.
And also you got to make sure how you're saying it, right? Because I have this thing about people talking in consultant speak. So you go blah, 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 in all these technical terms, and people are looking at you going, you sound awfully smart, but I have no idea what it is you do, or if I need you, or what my pain is that you're trying to solve. Part of, yes, that is a bit of a marketing task as well. But if you've done a good brand strategy, you would have delved into actually what's the solution that you're providing and what are the pains that you're solving. But you've learned how to say those words, and you've done a bit of research to find out how people are using the words, and then articulate them and put them in your guide.
So what are some examples of things that micro businesses, especially like one-man bands, who remember, get horribly wrong in their kind of, that you often come across when you're helping them with their brand strategy? What are some of the common gotchas that they do wrong from a branding or other perspective?
I think one is always consistency, right, Christelle? I think that's like one of the biggest things. And I think people have to remember, especially as micro businesses, because sometimes if it's you doing a lot of the stuff, you think you're getting bored, right? You go, oh God, I keep saying the same thing all the time. But one of the mistakes is that you've got to remember that people have to hear something multiple times, maybe in the same way or slightly nuanced, but they've got to hear it multiple times for them to really get it. Because especially service-based businesses and micros, you've got a long sales cycle, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to buy a frog. I've got many things on my table that I can still show you, right? So we're not selling this where you go, I want this, click buy. A service-based business is a trust cycle. There's a long cycle of trust. So actually you do have to keep repeating and be consistent, because people will not necessarily hear what you're saying until they're in their pain. You're on their radar, but they won't kind of hear it when they're ready. Like your kids, when you tell them not to do something and they're like, oh, okay, now I understand why I need you, Mum. Like, yes, this is what I was saying.
Wow, so it's important.
Is that a good example, Tim?
Yeah. No, I mean, with social media especially, it's you have to keep saying the same stuff, because a lot of the time people won't see it. I mean, the reach it is now. You could, and also you don't know that this isn't the first time that somebody's seen it. So I can certainly. A lot of people are like, well, I posted about my business on Facebook 2 months ago. It's like, well, yeah, nobody saw it.
And Facebook, that's a whole nother story, isn't it?
Well,
yeah, exactly. And I think, it's being consistent. And I think in the digital world that we live in now, and it's not just about social media, we know how highly strung people are on accessibility in terms of, mobiles and things like that, and how people digest content. You can't, as a micro business, pretend that stuff doesn't matter. Because it's a huge element of how people research you, find you, make decisions. Even if they're not posting, they're lurking, and a lot of time you won't know who the lurkers are until all of a sudden they ring you and go, oh, I've been following you for 2 years. Like, okay, this is not freaky, but yes, okay. But you got to realize that actually what you have to do is convert into this digital world, and you have to find, but part of their brand strategy is just finding where you're comfortable, because there's a lot of introverts or people that have ADHD that are struggling with other kinds of things. You got to find what's comfortable. You have to do it, whether you like it or not, as a business owner, but you can find a way that's comfortable for you.
Okay, let's ask the obvious question, because if we're talking micro businesses, most often the finances are the hard part. So how important is it to actually budget to get our brand right, or on the right track?
Okay, so I'll probably answer this in 2 measures. So I think it depends how long people have been in business, because when you start up, you're bootstrapping everything, right? And there's a degree to which actually, for me, in those first years, your biggest responsibility is experimenting, and is trying to find out actually who are you serving, who wants what you got. Keep testing. I don't think you can create something other than, in the beginning, just at least know who you are, what it is that you're hoping to achieve vision wise. But as you set out in business, That's all you can do. But you have to reach a point where you go, okay, I've now got this data. I've tested. I've worked out also what I don't like doing, which is very important. And then when you get to that point, and I think that's the 3 to 4 year mark where you've gone, actually, I've started selling things. I can see people like what I'm doing. I've seen opportunities for strategic partners. I think when you get to that 3 to 4 year mark, that's when I think you need to go, okay, let's now see what do I have, and actually now what do I want going forward, and then spend a bit of time. Even if that time is working with a consultant just to at least get your head around what your value proposition is. I think if you can get that really clear and articulate at the very least your value proposition, that will help. And then if you can spend more time then as you're going along, building everything else up, just always remember who you are, who you're there to serve, and what it is that you're doing. And if you can just keep really sharp about that, as money comes in, invest that time.
Yeah, I suppose it's worth probably. I mean, I think most online business people will know what value proposition is.
Yeah.
So people in the wider audience who might come across this show, what is a value proposition? That sounds a bit jargonish to me.
But it is jargonish, exactly. Yeah. But it's literally value and proposition. So if you think of those two words that make up value proposition, so your value is, how is it perceived to the outside world kind of value. So it's more about like, who are you? Who do you serve? What problem do you solve? And how are you different? I mean, that literally is your value proposition. And that's all vision and mission statements. I think for a micro business, all I do try and get you to focus on is what do you, what is it that you need some kind of vision, because a vision is something that is almost like a visionary goal that you never really achieve, but it's almost like your beacon of light that steers you in that direction, so that everything else that you're doing is leading towards that. So you don't necessarily need a vision and a mission, but you need a kind of like, actually, Christelle, we were talking before we went online, you were talking about, children's literacy and things like that. You've got a very strong calling or purpose of what it is that you're trying to get. Like, not everybody is that lucky. It's incredibly hard to do, isn't it? But you do need that. Otherwise, you will sway off into stormy seas. It just gets really tricky. Does that explain value proposition all right?
Yeah. No, I think I'm one of those drifting around aimlessly on the sea.
I think, but it's always difficult when you're trying to evaluate yourself, right? And this is half of the problem with micros or solos, is you're trying to, and also, Tim, quite a bit about so much.
Yeah.
And also about marketing, that you can't read your own label on your jar, right?
Yeah.
So if you and I sat down together and they've got, actually, Tim, where are your proficiencies? I would probably pick out a couple of things that you would go, yeah, but I just do those things.
I know, that's the trouble. The things that you think you're really good at, you don't necessarily, you think everybody can do them a lot of the time.
And a lot of time your marketable value is actually in your strengths. And your strengths are things like, you think it's so easy, you could do it in your sleep, or you enjoy it so much you think there's no way this could be work. That's actually your strength. And that's actually where your value lies. So that's always a good indicator.
I mean, let's talk about Tim now. He's a consultant, but he gives away his work for free. So this
Wow. I think right, Tim. So this is more like work on. So after you've worked out like kind of who you are, who you're solving the problem for, it's looking at that product ecosystem, as Daniel Priestley calls it. So we all know what lead magnets are and things like that, right? But they have a purpose in a machine. You don't have 50 lead magnets.
Yeah.
You just start with one really good, what is your offer, right? How do I, like in normal life when we didn't have online, right? You'd have to think about how you would trade and find people to buy from your store. You'd have to find a way to bring awareness so that you could find out who's interested in your store first. So the same applies from, the oldie worldy life to the online world, and also not doing too many of those freebie things, because there's nobody, when the people come into that, they don't really know where they're going to.
Yeah.
Just don't talk about me, sister.
We always have to talk about Christelle's Llama Farm.
I be honest.
Yeah.
You got a lot of mix there, like Tim, and I'd said to you before, because like we were watching TV this morning, I'm like, I'm sure that's Tim. Like Tim goes everywhere, because we were watching the guys in Prague. You know, the lovely sports guy Mike was in Prague because West Ham's playing or something, and there was a guy bouncing around in the back with a big flag. I'm like, I'm sure that's Tim.
Well, I don't remember going to Prague.
No, you didn't, because you
Tim, he's a traveler. He's a travel vlogger now too. So he's a consultant travel vlogger, author, social media strategist.
Well, I've not done them all at the same time. I just left them. They're detritus on my LinkedIn profile, like a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think with you, Tim, also because you've been in the space for so long and doing what you do. I mean, this is the thing. You've got to you get to a point, and this is actually quite my next podcast episode is Evelyn Starr. I don't know if you've ever met Evelyn Starr, but she's amazing, right? She's got this book. She's got this book that she wrote that actually is her specialism, and her specialism is helping people through what she calls the 8 symptoms of brand adolescence.
Yeah.
So you will love this, because it's like, so she just goes like, when you're having an identity crisis, which is one of the teenage symptoms, right? And then she explains what that kind of feels like as well, or FOMO, where you want to be everything to everyone and you won't kind of pick one thing. And but it's kind of handy to know what it is so that you don't get really annoyed at yourself and you go, oh, okay, it's that, right? So what's the way out? And also, what do you want, Tim? I think that's the most important.
That's a bigger question, isn't it? You know?
For another day.
Anyway, talking about personal questions.
Here we go. Now he's going to hit me over the head.
Nice segue, Tim.
Well, I mean, it's a difficult one, because I was thinking like, I'm not sure if I want to ask this question now, but I might as well.
You can.
I know you've suffered from a long-term health problem with hair loss.
Yes.
Let's say. So I think you are an outstanding example of somebody who's, because I didn't notice you were wearing the wig for years. I think you actually told me like, and I'm like, really? I'm the most unobservant person ever. So as much or as little as you want to talk about that, please can you talk a bit about like what your journey was with that health issue?
Right. So I have alopecia. A full alopecia, which is it's called alopecia universalis, which means head to toe. Okay. You might think that sounds great because you don't have to shave and stuff like that, but you really need things like your nose hair and eyelashes and eyebrows, because they actually are functional. So for me, it happened. Had my daughter in 2010, and she didn't sleep for like 2 years. So I had sleep deprivation, and I'd started the business as well, as most people stupidly do when they go off and have a baby. And I just and ironically, I was just coming out of that where she'd learned to sleep, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay, I feel sane now. I might consider a second child. But then all of a sudden, and I had long hair, hey? So like I've always had long hair, like down to here, blow drying my hair. And then all of a sudden my hair just like went parted like that. There was this strip, this bald, and I was like, what is this? And I got Christian to come and look, my husband, and he said, he said, it is literally, it's smooth. It was bald. So, and then literally over a period of 3 weeks, it just kept coming out, and I was too scared to comb it, or and I went through, and I was still at that time doing face-to-face board presentations to stakeholders. I was doing face-to-face training. I kept buying hair bands, thinking, it'll come back, I'll just get one to just cover this bit. And then it got broader and broader. I was like, right, this is okay, it's not coming back. But the doctors don't know anything, because it's autoimmune disease, and there's too many, they didn't really do any investigating. Dermatologists weren't very helpful either. So I found help with trichologists and acupuncturists and things like that, just to kind of, because for me, it's an internal thing, right? So giving me a steroid cream is not going to help solve hair loss. So for me, it was an internal thing, but they never found out. And then I was like, right, okay, I've got to get on with it. I got sick of taking pills in the end because you're like, vitamins for this and vitamins for that. I was like, all right, I'm done. Can't afford going to all these appointments anymore. I need to find solutions. So turned to YouTube and found out how to draw my eyebrows. There's a very handy lady online that helped me with that.
Yeah.
And then my client, his wife had always suffered with alopecia, and she had a really lovely wig lady in Lutterworth. So I went and go, right, okay, let's do this. And I've just had to get on with it. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's because I've actually met quite a few women with similar, and it's usually covered up completely. It's the whole sort of bandana or whatever. A lot of them never admit it at all. So it's good in a way that.
Yeah, I mean, I wear in my personal life now. I mainly wear scarves. So I only, unless we go out or something like that, then I'll wear a wig. It's not that I'm embarrassed about it. I just had some really weird experiences where I thought this is just too confronting. And it was literally down to like things like I'd go and see a prospective client. My clients all know, so I'm comfortable with my clients. That's not a problem. But in the early days, I was just going to see a prospective client, and I'd known him for a while. I was sitting in a Costa for coffee, and this lady just came up to me, and she goes, because I had scarves, because I was still battling in that in-between time. And she's like, can I just give you a hug? And I was like, what? And then she'd be like, I just, God told me to tell you that everything's going to be okay. And they're like, oh shit, she thinks I've got cancer. Oh God. And then I had this whole world of feeling really guilty because I wasn't ill. And I was like, oh, I can't keep feeling this. I even had a courier drop off something at the door. And I'm laughing because if I don't laugh, I'll cry. And I opened the door and he goes, oh, here you go. He goes, can I just ask, how is your treatment going? And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. So I didn't want to be a warrior, as in WARRIR. So I didn't want to be bold and brave, all of that. Because I'm like, I've got other things I want to talk about. And I didn't want this to be the cornerstone of conversations all the time. Because I'm 10 years in now. I don't want to have to keep, And I also thought part of that is me being more comfortable and also just wearing scarves and people getting used to me wearing scarves. So that happens less now, like in Morrison's. I don't get questions in the supermarkets anymore, and I don't get strangers coming up to me and praying for me. So they've all gotten used to it. Even my dog walking, everyone's used to seeing me now in scarves, so it's okay, But I'm still not used to seeing myself in the mirror, if I have to be honest. It's not nice. No, but get on with it, eh?
Yeah.
It's interesting. We all have a story that connects us to humanity, and so to be able to have that something, that story to talk about, I think can be important because it helps us realize we're all human. We all have struggles. That's kind of what I was thinking as you were telling this. Like, where do we get to be again? It kind of goes full circle to when can I just be human, and why do I have to be a brand? Kind of thing,
Yeah. Why do I have to have a label? Can I just be me? Yeah. No, you're right. No, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about it because I wasn't too sure whether I wanted to talk about it. So far, I haven't cried, so that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we could cry. There's next up is we were talking about next time we're
forced the woman to cry on the show.
I'm an ugly crier, so it's not something anybody wants to see. And everything just runs because I have no hair. So
I'm going to run to the refuge of one of my other stock questions to try and change the mood.
No, it's the mood is. I'm all right.
Tim, we're laughing.
I was going to ask
we're not crying.
Have you heard my free? I probably asked you the free animals question before, haven't I?
Oh, I have lots of it. Yeah. Okay, go. What is it?
Well, if you had to describe yourself using free animals, what free animals would you pick?
Oh, can they all be African?
They can be whatever you like. They can be made up. I've had people.
Okay, so the African elephant is my favorite animal. So it's on all of my screens. You'll see it on my website as well. So I like to think from a if I had to be part as an elephant, it might be the wisdom and the kind of matriarch in me. I have a ruler archetype in my brand archetypes, so I think the African elephant is up there with that. I'd go with meerkat for the curiosity. I think I'm a meerkat. And what else would I say? Quite like a blue jay as well. Let's throw a bird. Should we throw a bird in there? Can I be a bird, or does it have to be an animal?
Oh no,
Should we go for a bird? Right. Yeah, I think a blue jay or a robin. I think a robin's quite nice. You kind of feel positive whenever you see a robin. So I kind of like hope that, that's what I am for clients at least. Like, oh, good, it's Shelley.
Yeah. Well,
let's pray for her.
I had a bit of a fad of asking everybody that question for a while, because I just find it so much better than asking people what they do at conferences. It's like, describe yourself, because some people rattle it off straight away, and some other people are like just sitting there and they struggle with one animal, and it's kind of interesting as a psychological test.
We find out a lot about each other with this, and I love it. I like that. You should get a badge, Tim, when you go to conferences.
Yeah.
3 animals.
I think I might need some more. I might need to come up with some other sort of.
I think your challenge is, Tim, you travel so much and you go to so many conferences that you're like so over it. Yeah. You're just like, you know what? Just pass me your card. You don't have to say a word. It's okay. I'm done. I've checked you out already.
The 3 animal card, Tim. This is your branding.
But then I'm just going to end up with like 15 boxes of cards with whatever my next brand is on. So I've still got loads of Begin Self-Publishing podcast cards, which I haven't done a podcast episode of that for about 4 years. So that's the problem with business cards. It's like you get them all printed and it's like, oh, I'm changing my brand now.
Well, it all went away with COVID though, didn't it? So only just now with in-person networking, where only now some people are actually bringing them again, but I can't be asked to just do the whole LinkedIn thing.
In my world, they're doing the digital cards. Are they doing that? And it actually works really nicely because I do a lot of networking. So the digital cards I'm actually liking because we can immediately email each other.
Yeah.
But Tim, I think, okay, here's my thing for you, and then we can close out. You should get a card with the 3 animals, and on the other side say, direct them to your website and say, answer on my website here.
You're
welcome. Tests. That's only $50 for that idea.
I think you need to bring that to Atomic next year.
Yeah. It goes to Google Vistaprint or whatever.
Yeah, there we go. It'll be 24 hours.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking over you, Tim. Thank you.
No. Well, you got a question. Ask another question. So
did you want me to ask another question, or do you want to ask another question?
Yeah, you can ask if you want. I don't mind. I'm all right.
We forgot the question, Tim. Go ahead. The ending question.
The ending. Oh, yeah. The ending question is like, how can people find out about you, get in touch about brand strategy? Maybe if they're suffering from hair loss and they want somebody to talk to about it, how can they email you? Well, basically, like, how can people get in touch with you and give you like money?
Go to meerkat.com. No, I'm kidding. Don't just go to meerkat.com. That's a whole different business altogether. Right. So I have a personal branded site, which is ShelleyRöstlund.com. Yeah. So 2 E's. You can spell that later. Instagram is really my kind of community, kind of where I play. I kind of gave up on Facebook a bit, and LinkedIn as well. But all of those links are on ShelleyRöstlund.com. And I do have a quiz if people want to do it. It kind of tells you whether you're a brand misfit, magician, or a maven. So I kind of put you into a category. So actually, if you're this, focus on these 3 things. That might help in the meantime if they like. But yeah, that's me.
Oh, I like that. Very cool. Shelley,
thank
you for being here. Now we can say thank you for being here. This was really fun to meet you and get to know you a little bit better. And hopefully I can connect with you when I come to the UK at some point. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
So do a little gathering of some sort at Tim's house.
We need to do a meetup somewhere. So, not my house.
Not his house. No, we'll find somewhere. Don't worry. Someone else can do the cooking. I think that's a good plan. Well, it's lovely to be with you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah. because I'm at Atomicon next week and there's no show. So
get to see you in real life again.
Yes.
There you go.
So thanks for the person watching who's left a heart but no comment. They'll probably leave a comment after the shows.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This is what God requires.